Today, we're going to talk about the most interesting part of franchising, HR. So So today's about sales. So you have franchise development is obviously how you build your brands. My favorite quote was from Mark Twain. Good decisions come from experience, and experience comes from bad decisions. And boy, do we have some experienced franchise development guys on the panel today. So the structure of the panel, everyone's going to cover a quick topic, and we're going to break out into roundtables. I can tell you that I've been in franchising my entire adult life, and the one thing that I've always appreciated is we're all competitors, but I could call any one of these guys any day, run an idea by them. They would give me honest feedback. If I needed a referral or I needed a vendor, they would absolutely help me out. So don't think that just because you're in a competing industry with someone else, like I know Eric really well from Omaha, there's a lot of value you can get from relationships, and that's how franchising is built off of. So I'm going to go through, give everybody a quick intro, and then we'll get started here with everybody's topic. So Alex, you want to start just quick intro yourself?
Sure. Good morning. We're so close. Good morning, Alex Samios. I'm the Vice President of Development for Dogtopia. I am celebrating my 30th year next year in franchising. And I was actually exposed to franchising when I was this big. Now I'm this big. My dad was the first franchisee for Jiffy Lube in 1978. So I grew up in a franchise family. I grew up loving the industry, knowing I was going to get into it, and certainly I did. 2 days after college, went to work for an emerging brand. Called Papa John's Pizza. We had 300 units at the time. I went into operations, general manager, worked my way up through area supervision, and then had the fortunate opportunity to franchise with them, which I did in 1996. And when I sold the company 11 years later, I had 34 restaurants. I was nominated Franchisee of the Year for 3 years in a row. I was their youngest area developer when I first signed on, and it was a great experience. Along the journey, I also was the first franchisee for a mobile dog grooming company back in 2000. So saw what was happening even in the pet industry back then, wanted to be a part of it. Like you, I've been a franchisee, worked for corporate, and then I started my own brand. And so I've been a franchisor. I pioneered the infrared sauna space back in 2010. My company that I exited early out of, unfortunately, but is Perspire, who's the leading brand today in the space. So I pioneered a brand from start and built it, sold it. And then we had the opportunity to purchase Dogtopia from the founder with 19 units in late 2015. I invested in the brand, so I'm one of the partners, and I took the role as Vice President of Development. We've grown that from 19, we're at 171 now, with 283 sold and in development on top of that. So we're opening 30 more this year. We're set for a stretch goal of 100 next year, and we're on track for 400 open by 2024. We are the leading and the fastest growing brand, hands down, in the entire pet sector, which has been fun, that journey. I'm also a franchisee in the med spa business. I have 3 units of Beverly Hills Rejuvenation Center out in California, and I'm a partner on the board of another pet brand called Zoom Room, which we're now at 18 units with 50 going to be sold this year. That's the leading training and agility brand. And then what else? I'm in partner in an low-cost oil change concept. We just called Costa Oil. We just launched that, and then we're going to sell 50 units this year in our first year of franchising. And so franchising has been a wonderful experience for me. So with that, but my day job's Dogtopia, which we're going to talk about today. JT?
I don't know how to follow that.
You're being modest, dude.
My name's JT. I'm the Chief Development Officer for Home Franchise Concepts. We have 8 brands today: Budget Blinds, Tailored Living, Concrete Crafted, Clean, Kitchen Tune-Up, Bath Tune-Up, 2 Maids and a Mop, and another one that I can't talk about yet. But so anyways, I've been doing this for 30 years. I fell into franchising by accident and fell in love with it, and I've been doing it ever since. I started with Budget Blinds when that was the only brand we had. We had 80 franchisees. Today we have amongst all our brands, we have 2,700 franchisees, and my role is to just help the growth of those businesses. It's been my complete pleasure to be able to do that over the years, and I've got a great team that helps support that. So excited to be here today and talk a little bit about sales.
There you go. All right. Welcome, everyone. I'm Pete Barkman. I started in franchising at 20 as a franchisee for college pro painters. My mentor back then was Charlie Chase from the IFA. I just kind of stayed in franchising. I was a franchisee for CertaPro painters. I ended up getting to work with Tony Martino from Mako Auto Painting. I was director of development for Mako. I'd go in and support franchisees to grow their businesses, and he had a lot of troubled centers that needed help, so my team would go in and work with them operationally. And then I got to work again with Charlie Chase on the franchisor side. We took CertaPro from $30 million to $600 million, and it was a lot of fun. And then I started BrandONE about 5 years ago, and we worked with emerging brands to help build them into national brands. I had a lot of fun doing it with Mako and Certa, and I wanted to keep doing it, and I want to keep doing it as long as I can until I can't do it anymore. So that's kind of my background. I love the industry. I love the business. I love solving problems, and spent half my time in operations and the other half, and I went over to the dark side of the force, franchise recruiting. So, yep.
Awesome. Well, my name is Zach Beutler, so I figured age before beauty, so I'll go last. I'm a founding partner with Horsepower Brands, Josh Skolnick, my partner. I've been in franchising 15 years, so this is actually my 15th year. I was a franchisee at 21, grew to 7 locations in 23 months, got up to $8 million in revenue, then lost everything, filed bankruptcy, started over, partnered with another gentleman, and we grew his organization from 10 units to 68 units. In about 3 years. Did that in the nutrition space for about a decade. Got into franchise development. I've taken 7 brands from less than 20 units to over 100 in different industries. But franchise development is, I would say, is more my passion and my skill set. So at Horsepower Brands, we take emerging brands or mom and pops and we turn them into franchises, or take them from maybe 1 unit, restructure, retrademark, and then launch those across the country. So if you're an emerging brand, there's a lot of things that these guys are powerhouses. I mean, these are the best of the best. These guys' life's work. So you don't want to go head to head with these guys, but in the emerging space, I think these guys will have a lot of tips and tricks for you. So Alex is going to talk about where to get leads and how to not spend all of your budget either with brokers or organic, but he'll get into what some ideas he has for you on how to get some franchisees and not overspend.
Yeah, good. And again, good morning. 15,000. That's the number of deals per year. What is going to differentiate your brand for getting them from any of the larger brands here or more experienced teams? That's what we're going to talk about. How do you differentiate yourself? And it starts, I want to introduce this idea of building a reoccurring sales engine. Reoccurring sales engine. We're not in the business of one and done. You need to set your company, and that's what I did in 2016. As soon as we bought Dogtopia, 1 month later, I set out a plan to build a reoccurring sales engine. Now this thing's running. Without me, with me, for the next dev person, when we sell the company, we're putting that in hands. And there's been a lot of talk about valuations here. Building a reoccurring sales engine is a big part of valuation. They want to see growth and not you selling 20, 2, 30, 1, 10. They want to see this. And the way you do that is build a reoccurring sales engine that can exist without you. Okay? And it does. It exists without me. And so the other thing that parallels that, and there's been a lot of, David mentioned a book. I'm gonna give you one. It's called Turning the Flywheel by Jim Collins. Excellent book, and you all know Jim Collins, most should know him. But that's the same concept. We've introduced that into the company, introduce it into yours, and specifically for FranDev, it's about turning that flywheel. It's hard to get moving. Once you get moving, I can spin it with my thumb, pinky, finger, whatever. It takes the whole team to get it going. But now, after 5 years, and next year I'll sell 500 licenses, in a couple of years, that thing's flying. Okay, and it's gonna exist with or without me. And we're gonna get higher valuation when we go to exit because of that flywheel. And so that's important. David mentioned some of you, most of you are gonna be in that 10 or less units. And assuming, and you should not be franchising and not spend a dime in marketing unless you have the strongest FDD and item 19 possible and you've got support and systems in place. Now, granted, those run parallel to some of the things we're talking about today, but don't spend a dime until you have your house in order. You're just going to burn leads and waste money until you have strong validation. And that's the other thing I want to talk about is hire an experienced friend dev person if you can. They're worth their weight in gold. I will challenge David as saying the one person that will probably be with you if you hire them early to 100 is your friend dev person. If they do the right job, they're going to stay with you the entire time. And that's, one that you want to have. That's building that. Every time you change your salespeople, that flywheel is going to stop. And then somebody's going to come in and have to kick it up again. Which leads me to low-cost leads. If you have a change in ownership, a change in management, a change in your friend dev department, mine the old leads. First thing I did when I got on board, we have been franchising since 2005. So here's 10 years of leads I had at my disposal in 2016 when I started. I hammered them. First 3 deals, 60 days I closed 3 deals from that old lead. As I think Ryan Zink might have said, 80% of your leads are not going to get contacted by your sales rep. Some people, depending on, you saw David's graph, if they're in that lower group, you got to stay on them. Those leads are gold. And so I can guarantee you, if you look through and if you're not mining that database consistently, especially if you have a new salesperson come on or you're a new salesperson for the company, get out there and work those old leads. I guarantee you there's a nugget in there. And they're going to say, hey, I didn't like that other person before, or nobody contacted me, or I didn't get the right answers. So it goes back to people buy from people. David mentioned it. People buy from me and Peter and JT. That's what we do. And the good franchise development people, they go from brand to brand or brokers relationships. You guys do a lot of deals with brokers. They deal with the top franchise development people and they stay with them. I don't care what brand you're selling. People buy from people. So if you're not going to invest in that person that has these relationships, I know it could be expensive out of the gate, but again, 84% of you, or 84% of you are not going to make it to 100. So put the intellectual capital and all those resources up front to kind of get that flywheel turning. That's going to be huge. Item 19 is another topic. I don't have one since COVID. I'm going to sell 100 units without an item 19. How do I do that? I have a strong system, my flywheel's cranking, and I've got strong validation and a proven system. A lot of you aren't there yet, but I'm telling you, if you think, oh, my item 19 is not good enough, then you're not good enough. Your brand's not good enough, your systems aren't good enough, and your validation isn't good enough. I'm going to sell 100 units without an item 19, because they don't need me to tell them on paper. Talk to my franchisees. And the other thing is, we're not selling today. If your brand is on that goal to 20, 30, 40, 50, sell the vision, sell the future. They're not buying today. My largest franchisee has 18 stores. He said, Alex, I didn't buy for the 2016 FDD. I bought for what it was going to look like in 2025. Now, you have to prove that you've made progress. It's not smoke and mirrors, and we have. Double-digit same-store sales growth for 5 years proved that, hey, we've done this, we've doubled the average unit volumes in 5 years, in another 5 years, we're going to double them again. I've proven it, and now I'm going to do it again. So that's key as well. Hit up your customers. I know it was mentioned before. That's low-hanging fruit. Early adopters, brand ambassadors. My marketing team, yes, it's consumer, but Fran Dev, we talk about it every week. They are joined at the hip. There's not 2 divisions of the company. Fran Dev and marketing or consumer. They're the same. You should be speaking to your customers, and they should know that there's a franchise opportunity with you, whether you're brick and mortar in stores, on everything you do. That's a no-brainer. Many of my franchisees were our pet parents and customers in our stores. And that's just a no-brainer. So that's important. Create compelling and exciting content. It's cheap to do. I'm going to give you some examples. Topper's Pizza Great concept. If you go to their YouTube page, you will see their franchise development video, which they played at a conference a couple years ago. It's hilarious. They did an amazing job. There's a lot of competition and noise in pizza. But let me tell you, they stood out by that video, and it's amazing. Now, you could talk about production value. That was a little high, but you can do it on your phone. You didn't need to do what they did. It's the message. It's how do you stand out and differentiate yourself. That's the difference. Another example, Google Dogtopia Bark Tank. We did a parody on Shark Tank with dogs as the sharks sitting there. That's high production value. It was like 50 grand to produce. I get it. When I aired that for the first 6 months, I got 10,000 impressions, millions of views. It was shared. It was commented. I got 358 leads, and I closed 5 deals, one of which was a 3-pack. So I generated over $1 million in revenue from producing something that was funny. It was a parody, but it differentiated us from the noise. So that was another example. We also did a parody on, if those of you that are old enough, Mac versus PC. Remember those ads in the 90s were brilliant from Apple, and it had the nerdy PC guy. Well, we did that, and then we did 4 of them. It was easy. It was a blue screen or green screen, whatever they call it. It was low production value. We ran 4 of them. Why we were different from our competitors, mom and pops. We challenged Rover and Dog Vacay, the online, the app, pet sitting deal. We challenged all of those, and it was hilarious. They ran. We gave them to our franchisees. Guess what? Yes, it was consumer facing, but did I generate leads from it? Hell yeah. I don't know if you were in the session with Red, what we did yesterday, but we were talking about grassroots marketing opportunities. And Red just stood up and started videoing and posted it to his LinkedIn, which is what he does all the time. But he was making it a point that it doesn't have to be high production value. Just you should be shouting about your brand. And there's cheap ways to do it, just with your cell phones. The videos are good enough with our cell phones now. Record it and get it out there. So that's another way to do that. What else? Stay committed. Marketing is not one and done. I hear a lot of folks like, we ran that ad, didn't work. How long did you run it for? 1 month. Okay. Stay the course. Commit to a marketing plan and stay with it. Building a reoccurring sales engine is not dependent on one lead source. I do not want to be dependent on one lead source. I know a lot of you do broker deals, and a lot of broker deals. And that could be 80, 90% of your deal flow. Remember, no one is too big to fail. I do not want to be reliant, much as I love Ryan on Fastlane, okay? I mean, somebody could fail. There could be regulation with brokers. There's been talk for years. Like, I just don't want to rely. Build your organic pipeline in parallel. So you are not, it's a drug. And if that drug ever goes away, you are going to be screwed. So build a parallel path always. If you look at my lead sources, the majority are organic. I don't rely on anybody else except myself to generate these leads. But I also have PR, I've got print, I do, all these other lead sources, referrals existing. So let's talk about referrals, another good one. I don't pay for referrals. I think it's wrong. I think our brand ambassadors should be shouting about our brand, and if they have a friend or a customer, they should be promoting it themselves. As soon as I give them money, by the way, they can't validate. They cannot share numbers if I'm paying them. So, if you explain it to your franchisee, if they referred somebody and they knew you got paid, are you going to tell them you got paid, by the way? I don't know. But if you didn't, then they may feel like you pressured them into this. And, oh, by the way, if you shared numbers with them, that's wrong. We could get busted for that from the FTC. So be careful with those referral deals. What else? Multi-pronged approach. Make sure you do that. Validation is key. The first 10, sell your next 100. Be selective. The heartbeat and checkbook, I know, is tempting. I've been there. But remember, you're going to spend the next 10 years trying to get rid of them. And as much as you say, I want to do this 3-pack deal, it's like, he's an experienced franchisee, she's an experienced franchisee with blah, blah, blah brands. They're going to be awesome. Validate for me. Just be careful. That tail could be wagging that dog. Bringing in those big, experienced operators, you heard David say it, early on, if you're not prepared, they could ruin you. Because I guarantee you don't have the systems. And if they're one or two, that's fine. If you got somebody that has 100 of something, they will ruin you. They will own you as well. And you're gonna drive your whole system.
That's a good segue.
Yes.
And so Peter's going to talk about just experience and creating a good foundation of franchisees. And I think that's a great segue of you definitely don't want to sell somebody a ton of different territories when you're young, because they technically would have control of the organization as far as some of the decisions you want to make. But Pete's got a lot of experience with going into a brand, helping restructure. So can you talk about just the benefits of having a good foundation of franchisees?
Yeah, so can you guys hear me all right? Good. Yeah, so I would say, and this is odd coming from a franchise acceleration company guy, but I would say, foundation first, acceleration second. And that's just the ops guy coming through there. But you don't really want to put the cart before the horse. You want to have your operational house in order. You don't want to go high, wide, and handsome on recruiting before your operational house can handle it. Josh Skolnick yesterday, he mentioned this. He's got a new brand that he's come out with, but before he did, he had 20 support people in place for that brand. And I commend him for that. We did that at CertaPro. We didn't go crazy recruiting until we figured out we had a lot of things that were broken that we needed to fix before we started recruiting. So there are two things that you're going to need in order to recruit franchisees. You're going to need your franchisees to be profitable, and they need to feel supported. That's it. If they are profitable and they feel like they're being supported by you, you're on to a very, very good start. You can accelerate a brand that has those two components to it.
So, this is a good question for you. So you've talked to a lot of brands as an FSO organization. How many brands have told you, oh, my franchisees make lots of money, they're super profitable, and they have no idea?
Yeah.
So how do you make sure that the franchisees are profitable? How do you monitor that?
Well, it's all about, measuring. You can't manage what you can't measure. So you have to have technology in place to be able to track what's going on. A lot of people think they're doing really well, but then if you dive deep, they're not doing as well as they thought. They get to the end of the year and they're not profitable, and then they blame you. And maybe it's a little bit your fault because you didn't have your eye on the ball, and you should know your metrics. So, there's a buddy of mine, Rich Wilson, who's from Paul Davis Restoration, part of First Service Brands, First Service. And, he said to me, if we just simply focus on franchisees being profitable, everything else will kind of fall into place. And, boy, is he right about that. Because the franchisees can feel that you're focused on their profitability, that you genuinely care about that. And you're spending time on things related to their profitability, and you're asking them questions, and that really puts things in a really good place when you're deeply focused on their profitability, and they can see that and they can feel that. And then what ends up happening from that is, because you're supporting them in that effort, they're going to support you by validating. Right? And then when they validate, you're going to get better franchisees. And when you get better franchisees, you get better franchisees. And it just kind of keeps on snowballing. One of the brands we work with is Junk Luggers. And with every brand's got different ideas about how fast they want to grow. We really focus on smart growth. We want to make sure that we grow at the speed that they can handle it. And because if it grows too fast, that's a mess. But also, if they can handle it, let's grow. So every brand's a little bit different, but it's really about trust, like, and respect. One of the things that's funny about us guys, you'll find us in the corner. We're hardly ever in the center. We're introverts, and we're all in sales. Isn't that kind of funny? And a lot of the better franchise development people are introverted, believe it or not. But they're really good at connecting one-on-one with people, not so good in a group like this. This scares the shit out of me. But anyway, it's really about trust, like, and respect. there was a group that I brought to the Junk Luggers, and it was a derivatives trader from London and his CMO wife. Collectively, they had a 7-figure income. Why would they be interested in junk removal? Was it that I was able to make a strong connection with them? Or maybe am I a good storyteller? Was I be able to tell a compelling story that kind of connected them with the brand, and was able to meter that story in using technology to kind of, so that they could eat that elephant one bite at a time as opposed to just dumping it all on them, right? Or was it the fact that I challenged them when they were late for a call or weren't prepared for the call? Was that the reason they bought from me? It's all of the above, right? So it's really about trust, like, and respect. And there's a couple of components to trust: competence, commitment, and common sense of purpose. You may have heard that before, but competence is knowing what you're doing. Commitment is dedication, and common sense of purpose is your interests are aligned. The second is like. I generally like people who do the right thing. I think a lot of people do look for people who do the right thing and avoid people who don't. If I would highly recommend that you do the same. And then respect, lead by example, do those kinds of things. Have a tough talk with the franchisee. So it's about trust, like, and respect that really does, drive things. The one thing, and you said it really perfectly, is that, once you get your first 10, you get them and they're successful and you got that locked and loaded, getting to 100 is going to be imminent. So slow your roll and get it right first. That'll really help move things along the right way.
JT's going to talk about creating the perfect avatar. So for your franchise system, you have to think about who's going to be the ideal candidate so you can set up your organic lead gen. So when you're taking people through a process, you can identify, is this person what I'm looking for as a franchisee? And so he's going to talk about that.
Super, yeah, thanks. Well said, Peter, by the way. I want to talk a little bit about, like, for the emerging brands that are looking for, like, their first franchisees. And because I've been there, and people, like, are fogging a mirror and waving a check, and you're like, yes, because I want that first person to come in. But that first person that comes in could be, like, the worst person, like you said, if you're not really focused on exactly who you're looking for and what you want them to do for you. And so you have to be really careful in terms of identifying exactly what the right fit is for your business. Like, if you don't know, how are they going to know, right? So you have to be able to have a compelling story as to what that first franchisee or the 10th franchisee looks like and what their expectations are. So we're growing right now some of our brands into Canada for the first time. And I was talking to a guy the other day on the phone. I was like, listen, you're going to be my first franchisee in Canada, and there's some expectations that come along with that. You're going to have to validate your ass off, and whether you like me or not that day, you still have to pretend like you like me, because I need to help grow this business. And I'm not growing it for me, I'm growing it for you. Because if we can grow this business together, someday you're going to go sell, and if we have 100 units in Canada, guess what? Your business is worth that much more, right? And so if you have an issue, come talk to me and we'll solve it. But you need to be putting a smiley face on and being very enthusiastic about the brand. And I tell people all the time, like, listen, there are people that are really good at being one of the first franchisees in a system, like the first 10. And there are some people that are just really better off being like number 110. And you have to decide which one you are. Like, and it's not a bad thing. Like, me personally, I'm 110. I'm not gonna cut my teeth with this brand and figure it out along with you as we go. Like, I want to be someone that is coming into a system that's nice, like the water's nice and warm, right? And I come into that. But I have franchisees that are like, yes, I am your number 1 guy. I'm your number 10 guy. And I will be happy to validate. I will be happy to support it. I'm gonna happy to give feedback to things that I see that you're missing in terms of your support or your products or anything else that you're dealing with. And you have to be really careful that those are the people that you're bringing on first. If you bring on someone that's expecting the whole world to be buttoned up, like with Budget Blinds, I've got 1,300 franchisees, right? I can add one more, and they all know that the water's completely warm and they're completely safe. And they don't have to reinvent anything. They just have to come in and follow the system. But if you're number 10, you've got to be prepared to do that. And one thing you have to be careful of those is not to wear them out in validation, because they're busy, they're running a business, it's new, they're trying to figure everything out. And so one thing we do, and I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not going to comment on the legality of this, so you guys all decide for yourselves. But we do a hosted conference call every week. We get the franchisees at our convention every year. There's a big board. They literally come up with a marker and sign themselves up for a week call. And they host those calls. We invite everyone in. And we don't listen to them. We don't monitor them. We have a third party that actually executes those. And then they put them on a website. And because we don't listen to them, we can't talk to, are they talking about numbers? Are they going outside the Adam 19? Like, I don't know what's on there. We don't delete them. We don't add to them. We don't anything. But people tell me all the time, it's the number one best thing you've ever done for this business. And because I sit there and I drive to work, I drive home from work, I just listen to conference calls on my phone or on the car radio, whatever it is. And I have some people like, I listen to 30 of these things. They don't even make individual calls. And so that will help, especially if you're a younger brand with a limited number of franchisees. You won't wear your people out with call after call after call when they're trying to run their business. So they can be like, hey, listen to my conference call, and then if you want to call me back for 10 minutes for like some follow-up or whatever, that's great, but it's not an hour call because we're not going through everything from square one. So if you're not doing that, I would highly recommend you do that. It will preserve your system. It's a great way to move people forward. I have franchisees, like we'll sell 185 deals this year, and probably 100 of those will never have actually done a person-to-person validation call. They just listen to the recorded calls and they're good to go. So certainly understand who you're looking for. Really make tough decisions about, like, someone looks great on paper, they're waving a check, it's all great. Like the big unit guys, like you don't want to start with those. You want to start with someone that just believes in what you're doing and wants to work together with you and is understanding that some things won't be perfect right off the bat. But they're there they want to be proud to stand up one day and be like, I was franchisee number 1 or 10 at your convention. You're giving them an award and they're a brand ambassador for your business and everything else. And that's the key, in my opinion, to getting started with franchising as an emerging brand.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that is, you touched on it, transparency. Like, your systems may not be perfect. Your franchisees are always going to have issues. It's about, hey, I had issues. Here's what the issues are. Support office is aware of it, and they're addressing it. That's all I care about. Right? If I'm being ignored, that's different. So you may not think you're ready. My validation isn't perfect. It doesn't have to be. And you don't want to coach your franchisees, but it's about transparency. Look, they're good people at the support office. They're doing the right thing. They listen to me, and they know what they need to fix. They know what's broken, and that's the key. And a lot of it is going back to, we talked about the FBR surveys, Franchise Business Review. If you're not doing those, do those regularly every year. That's a third-party service that will survey your franchisees. All the big brands do it, and it's a great way, and there's 30 standard questions. You can add 5 custom ones in or whatever. But that's another point. Getting back to COVID, we all went through that difficult time. That's the number one question, right? How did you support your franchisees during COVID? You should be shouting about it if you did it well, because that's the test. Anybody can support through easy times. It's how did you and your team support your franchisees? Did they feel loved during that time?
Perfect. I'm going to just go real quick. I just thought if I can help you in any way, I'll just walk through what our exact process is that we take candidates through. So we create 3 presentations. We do one that's industry education and brand education. It's typically about 20 slides long. It talks about the industry, talks about the brand history, values, our mission, et cetera. The second is customer acquisition, and I'm a big believer that you should have 3 special sauces that's better than your competitors. So whoever your competitors are, the goal is to beat them. So whatever you're doing, you have to have 3 special sauces of how to drive lead flow for your franchisees. So that, again, is about 20 slides. The third is operational support, and we call it entrepreneurship support. So we do one-on-one financial reviews. We do peer-to-peer structured meetings where they're moving forward together and they're learning best practices from other business owners. But we record 3 videos, put them in a playlist on YouTube, and when they schedule their first call, we send those videos out. So they get all of that education before they even get to the first step of the process. The first call with the development guy is to really build the relationship, answer their initial questions, and then set them up for the second call, which is what we call unit economics. And that's where we take them through an Excel spreadsheet that they can build a pro forma off of. We don't give them a pro forma, but they can use the information in the item 19 to build essentially a pro forma on if this business makes enough money or is a good financial opportunity for them. We then give them the FDD, and we do the same thing with structured validation calls, so we invite them to those. So by the second call, they have something to start looking on numbers. They've been educated on the brand. They're talking to franchisees, and they have the FDD. The third call, we take them through what their territory might look like. We use Jeebus as a software to map the territories. I think it's 10 or how much is Josh? 10 or 15 grand a year. But that's the one that we use. We map the territory. We send them PDF copies. You're answering questions about anything that they have with validation or their numbers. And the fourth is just an overall FDD review, and we invite them to a discovery day. And that's where we're having them come out to our corporate office. And by that time, they've been vetted. The development guy really feels like they're the right fit, and they have them come out to Omaha for our discovery day. So that's really, I guess, our process. And there's always, random calls that they have questions on before. But the first thing is you got to get them hooked. And I'm a big believer in if I'm going up against Alex, well, I know he's good. So I'm gonna call this guy, probably get him through 3 calls in 10 days. Because I want to talk to him 10 times more than Alex does in that first 10 days. So if you keep their attention, typically you can move them through the process successfully. So we're going to break out in some round tables, but I know Eric Martin's a seasoned development guy. Eric Van Horn's right back there as well. Josh Skolnick, Jeff Duden. There's a lot of people in here that you can learn from. And just ask questions. Like I said, franchising is a unique industry where we go head to head with a lot of candidates and be competitors, but God, if they ever need anything, I'd help them as much as I could. So break out now or yep. Anything else?
Awesome, yeah.
Build a reoccurring sales engine.
Yeah, I would say don't trick dumb people into your franchise, attract smart people.
Brilliant. Yes. And don't
You'll have a lot of problems, yeah.
And don't be scared to do the takeaway.
Yeah.
Okay? That's saying no to somebody.
Could I just ask a quick question?
Yeah.
So we mentioned recording the calls with franchisees, sort of pre-validation calls. Where do you host those calls? You said you don't see them. Where does the prospect get to see that call?
So we have a website that a third party administers, and so we can't change it, take them off. Because that's what we want to have, we don't want it to be us, right? Because that's the way that our attorney is like, okay, you're fine if you do this. And so it's a third-party website. We give them a link to it, and they can go on and check them all out. So.
And you did touch on this. There is some legality around that. We do basically the same thing, but you do need to consult your franchise attorney on the risks on that, because some people don't do it and they stay far away from it.
Right.
But, we're looking to award 100 to 200 units a year per brand. So we're growing aggressively.
And you said you host yours on a YouTube site?
We host ours on a YouTube channel. We do a Zoom call twice a week with different franchisees. Josh, you have a question?
And we can just do some Q&A too, like this, because
this is
everybody
good.
benefits.
Making sure that the franchisor is controlling the process from start to finish. And then the last one is the pros and cons versus conversions, because I think a lot of successful franchisors avoid conversions, so it's probably an important topic to talk about.
Yeah, it's actually important. So all of our brands, like in the roofing industry, none of our franchisees have roofing experience, and we will not take them if they have roofing experience. In the tree business, none of our franchisees, well, I should say 2 franchisees had experience, and they were our lowest performers, and they both failed. So we tell people, we do not want franchisees with industry experience. We want executive level business performance type of franchisees. Somebody else had a question?
Talk to the cube. On your lead generation, when you're starting to build that out organically for leads to find you on your website, what kind of qualifications, because I've seen it done, short list, long list forms. so that you're gathering information and qualifying them to a certain degree before somebody actually talks to them. I would love to get some input, pros and cons of asking for more information, less information. What do you find is valuable to qualify them?
We do short, so we just do net worth, phone number, email, and name. We found that shorter was better, but we have someone in the office that actually calls them and qualifies them as well. If you're an emerging brand, you might not have the capital to hire that person, so you might have to sift through a few bad candidates to get to the good ones.
Short. Net worth, cash, liquid cash, and where are they from. That's all I care about on that initial deal. And remember, the higher net worth, so my investment's over $1 million, and Peter's got a competing investment at 1.5, 1.8.
Yeah.
So as versus you guys, some of your brands, obviously, the higher you go up, the smaller the funnel, right? Your candidates, more expensive your investment is, the smaller of those 15,000 leads or deals you're going to get just in general. But I would opt for short always if that initial pre-qual comes in.
Yeah, we have companies that, range on the high end, 1.8 million for one unit to, sub 100K brands, in terms of investment. And we always go short.
Yeah, we do short too. I would tell you, to your point, Zach, is that if you don't have the capital, it doesn't cost that much to get somebody that even part-time can make those phone calls and reach out to people really fast, because it's about deal speed. If you're not getting back to these people right away, someone else is getting back to them. They're looking at other things, and first wins so much more than second and third in this business. It's about getting back to them fast. And so if you don't have that person, you can pay someone $20 an hour to make phone calls for 4 hours a week to get back to people or whatever you need to do. Or use Fran funnel, so you're getting an instant text back when they fill that out, so that they know they've been connected. Because if you're not getting back to them right away, what's the first thing that they're thinking about? Is that, when I'm a franchisee and I have an issue, are they also not going to get back to me right away? And so it's about speed. The speed wins more than brand a lot of times, right? It's about that connection. So I would recommend you get somebody that can, if you can't get back to them right away, make sure you've got somebody on staff that can.
Yeah, there's some pretty compelling data that suggests that if you don't get back to an organic lead within 4 hours, it drops pretty dramatically, percentage-wise. So it's important to pay attention to those things.
Danny, a question?
Well, I just wanted to make a quick statement, and I'll throw it over to him, but everybody discussed validation, okay? For those of you new franchisors, 10 units or less, aspirations to grow, include validation in your training program, okay? When your franchisees are coming through initial training, you need to talk about validation, why it's so important. Every franchisee at some point in their career is going to sell their business, okay? And this is where they build value and equity in their business, is on resales, okay? So you need to educate your franchisees right out of the gate on validation and how critically important it is, because if they're having a bad day and they get that phone call for validation, it may not go so well, and they need to be trained on that. So think about that.
Apologies for my voice. I'm on my 9th day on the road. A little too much talking, maybe drinking. I don't know. Either way, I had to ask this question this much that I'm going to embarrass myself. But on the organic lead side, like Facebook leads or portal leads or whatever, they're coming in on the weekend. You need to get to them quickly. How do you handle staffing that part of your automated funnel? Right, my company have callers Monday through Friday, but the weekend's tough. And then, what do you pay? The $20 an hour person, do they scare away your, multi-unit buyer because they're not equipped to talk about your brand?
Well, I think the initial person that contacts them, it's training, so they're not going to be, they're not the person that's going to be able to speak to the financials or the business operations. So you really have to train them on how they answer that question by saying, hey, that's not my role with the company. We very much stay in our lanes, and we're big believers in focus. You'll talk to Terp on our team, that's what his role is. And let me schedule a call and he can get all of those answered for you. To your question, we don't answer them on the weekends, and that's probably an issue that we should address. But
Yeah, so you fill out an inquiry, you're gonna get an email back with, and all of you should be using these scheduling links, right? They get an email right back, they can book a call, right? So, and this goes back to, really investing in a quality Fran Dev person. There are some organizations, how many people do you guys have in your?
13.
Right, 13. They've got a lot of brands and a lot of leads coming in. But I've had one qualifier. I talk to every lead, every candidate. And for 5 years, I've had one person next to me. She's now been promoted to director of development for me. But leads come in and they book automatically. Now she'll follow up. She works on the weekends. If she gets those, she'll text or reach out. But for my investment, I would challenge the 4-hour thing a little bit. And I've talked to people about this for years. Like, if we don't get back to them, the email comes right back out. But my buyer isn't gonna need to get instant gratification right away. And I've just noticed that, like, this is a big investment. They're not in a hurry to make it. And so, but that weekend thing, you don't have to get back to them. I don't know what you guys do, but
We have an automatic text that comes back.
Yeah,
same thing,
it's
your
a lot of
email.
automation you
at
can
least
use.
And they can book on Calendly, and it goes from there. That person that's making the phone call for me is verifying their information, making sure that they actually know what they clicked on, that they actually want a phone call and they're interested in a franchise. But the one thing that I started training them on, which has really been a transitional thing for me, is they always end with, what's your why? Why? Why are you doing this? Why did you click on that? What is going on in your life? And it doesn't need to be a long conversation, but when they can take that and hand it to my franchise development person and say, I already know what their why is. Think about that first conversation that the franchise development person's having with that candidate, and they're already in their space, right? They know, oh, I hate my job, I hate my boss, I travel too much, whatever the deal is. They can start and launch from there as opposed to a cold start, and it really has made a huge difference in converting those leads for us.
And remember, a lot of people don't understand this, but that person who's returning that call is the first and only contact they've had with your brand. And you're going to pay someone $12 an hour who doesn't know anything about your brand to say, hi, what are you interested in? So invest wisely in that, because that is the first representation of your brand.
Yeah, I think that why question is a really important one, because you get to start to understand what their pain points are, and you can kind of hone right in on that, and connecting their personal why to your mission, your vision, your brand is really, really important. If you should do that pretty early in the process, for sure. It's really good that you do it right away. That's a great question for the first, because it's about them.
Yeah, so I do pre-discovery day calls with every candidate that comes through, and the one question I ask every single person is success, because everyone wants to be successful, right? But what does success mean to you? I said, so if I run into you 3 years from now at a convention, you come up, you shake my hand, you give me a hug, you love what you're doing, and I say, are you finding success as a franchisee of ours? What boxes are you going to check to answer me? Is it all about money? Is it about freedom? Is it about building something for your family? Is it about community involvement? Is it about giving back? Is it about hiring people that you can give a great career to? What is it for you? Because there shouldn't be a blanket definition of success, right? I'll tell you a quick story. I was at a convention 2 years ago, and I had a franchisee come up to me in front of the CEO of JM Family, which is a huge company that owns us, and he throws down $100 on the table and walks off. And I'm like, what was that? And he goes, I always pay my bets. And I'm like, I don't remember making a bet with you. And he's like, I told you I was going to be at 10 million by this year, and I came in at 9,800,000, and I'm pissed. And so I'm like, I gave him $100. I tried to give him $100 back. He didn't give it to me. I don't remember making the bet, but apparently we were in Prague and we did that, so there might have been some drinks involved. But that, for him, success is all about that number, right? Same day, I'm at lunch with a guy who's a hockey player. I grew up playing hockey, and he's out of New York, and And we were talking about the $1 million party that we do that night. We've got about 280 franchisees that do over $1 million. And he's like, if you ever see me in that party, I want you to come up and punch me in the face. And I'm like, oh, it's a hockey player guy, right? But I'm like, well, why? Like, why wouldn't you want to be at that party? And he goes, because I know what it takes to do $1 million in sales in this business, and I don't want that. I like my lifestyle. I like the fact that I have limited employees. I coach hockey. I do things that I want to do, and I'm really happy with the income I make at $700,000 or whatever it is he's doing. So I don't want to get to that next level. And for him, that's success, right? So it's different for everybody. And so you really need to just understand, what does success look like for your franchisee, and understand, can you help provide that for them? Do you have a system that will get them to where they want to be? And if their goal is, listen, I want to make $10 million in profit, and you look at your franchisees and go, I don't have anybody that's doing that, then avoid that guy. Like, move on, right? So it's really important, I think, to understand what their success looks like.
And if you're doing all the talking on the first call, that's a problem. Like, and I know some of us we love our brands. We just want to talk. I want to tell you everything in this first 10 minutes. Get you so fired up. Let's go to the next step. It's like, calm down. You need to listen, right? More than you're talking, and listen to what they need. Because there is a wide spectrum of, you're going to get, JT, those two, franchisees. But it goes back to building your avatar, right? Which is, who is your ideal candidate? Like, what do you want them to be? Who do you want to replicate? And find more people like that. Find out where they live, what they consume, how to reach them. And it's going back to building that reoccurring sales engine, social, digital, PR. It's everything. I still run print ads, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know we're having some. You have a question?
Yeah, it's going to change the topic, though. Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I also have this voice thing going on. I'm not sure if there's something going around. Joking, sorry.
Don't say that. Angela.
Steven, you have it too? Okay. Anyway, so we hear a lot of emerging franchisors when we talk about that your first, 5 or 10 or even further than that, franchisees, there's so much to mine in your network. And I think it was you, Alex, you were talking about how, that they're there, that you do these things to attract them. One of the objections we hear all the time from really early stage franchisors is they're afraid to talk to they're afraid to use their database of customers and clients to start selling franchises. So what we always, and I'm just making sure everybody thinks about this so you don't leave here and go, how do we do that? So you guys might have some insights as well. What we always say is that they love to see your growth. Like, make it like, do you want to be part of our mission, and go with us? And if you lose 20% of your database, you don't lose them, they just stop following you on Facebook. I would personally pick the opportunity to bring on franchisees and lose a few customers. I'm just curious what you guys think about that.
Yeah, I think for early brands, I think it's fine. I would never send emails now to our franchisees databases or anything. But I think for early, again, when you're in that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, again, shout about the opportunity. And again, brick and mortar. It should be signs in stores, should be a pamphlet on the the counter.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Every opportunity they should be shouting about it. Again, those early customers are, despite what David says, they could be great franchisees because they are your brand ambassadors.
Yeah.
And there is some franchisees, like if you ask, can I have your database, or I want to market to a franchise, like they're going to hate that. So don't do that. You get them on the journey with you. To say, hey, we're promoting this. Would you guys, I want you guys, and have them do a validation with it, and say, whatever. But there's a delicate way to do it, and I think it's okay at early.
There's a lot of, you guys hear me?
Yeah.
So I know there's a lot of people in this room that have 0 franchisees, or maybe 1, and those are the people that we hear this from, that they're afraid to just even their own customers to talk about it with. So not even to talk to, because they don't even have franchisees yet. So they're afraid to even tell their customer base. And I always say, don't call it a franchise, just call it opportunities to help us grow, be your own boss. I know that goes against some other things, but the people that are looking for or to become a franchisee at that stage aren't shopping for a franchise. They love your brand, and you've got to help them realize that this could be an opportunity for you. So that's more what I was speaking about, like really early stage. And does that clarify?
One thing, I look at a lot of franchise websites because I'm trying to buy brands all the time, and I'm kind of compulsive that way. But when you go onto my website and you put in your zip code to buy blinds or get your closet done or whatever it is you're trying to do, if we don't have a franchisee in that market, the first thing that pops up is, would you like to become a franchisee? And I started doing that like 5 years ago. I've sold like 25 deals from people that are like, well, I needed the service and there's no one here, so why don't I do it? And I wish I've been doing it for the last 19 years, but unfortunately I haven't. But I go on to so many websites where I put in my zip code and they're like, oh, we're not there. I'm like, well then ask, like, would you like to be there? And so that's an easy thing to do, I think, as far as adding that.
Lonnie, did you get that? That was a website guy. We need to do that.
I mean, when I started my wellness concept, one unit, right? It was my baby. It was running it. And when I wanted to franchise, I absolutely hit up my entire customer database, and I told them about the opportunity. And I got a handful inquired for sure, and we had good talks. And later, some of those initial customers did become franchisees after I left. But yeah, I think if you're just got one unit, hell yeah, Shell.
Yeah, we had success. One of the brands that we work with, we had a great deal of success with that strategy of going out to our existing customer database. And we were real clear about where we were looking to develop nearby. So that was also helpful because they go, oh, that could work for me. So yeah, I would say do it, especially early on.
Any other questions?
The way to reframe that is, who do you know that would be a good franchise? That way it's just a way to reframe that same question.
Do you know 5 people that know 5 people that know 5 people?
Yeah, I think one of the things that your franchisees need to understand, and this is something that doesn't always like click for them right away, but Ralph said it really pretty well. But the 2 ways that you as a franchisor provide value to a franchisee is income and asset value. Income is EBITDA. It's like, how much money can I make doing this? And then asset value is, what's this thing going to be worth when I exit, when I sell it? And a lot of times they forget about that when they're buying a franchise. They don't think about the exit, right? And they really should. And so they should be brand ambassadors and try to do everything to increase that EBITDA multiple. And the only way that that's going to happen is if they're helping you to build the brand, that's going to raise that brand equity, and that's going to raise that multiple, and their business is going to be worth more money. It's like being in a neighborhood where everybody takes care of their lawn and their homes, and nobody's homes looks too beat up. You want all the franchisees doing those good things because someday the house might be worth a lot more.
It's interesting, real quick. I love Ralph's point. I go into every training class that we do, and I teach about validation and referrals, but I also give a whole class on how to sell your business. And they're like, we just started. Like, we're on day 1. Like, you're trying to get rid of us already. Like, well, someday you're going to want to. And I can't tell you how many people have come over to me over the years and said, if I'd known this, then I would have done things differently. And so what I try to do is set your business up now. And whether it's 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road, if you do these things, you're going to maximize your value, and people find that really valuable. So this is a thought for those that aren't doing that.
I'll piggyback on that just real quick. All of our franchisees have to use a designated accounting company. So, and we do the same thing, help them sell their business, structure it, but we tell them, listen, you're going to want to run things through this business to avoid paying income tax, obviously. Mm-hmm. So when you're doing that, you can separate those into different classes. So you can have a management class and a whatever your brand name's class. But when you go to collect the financials for your item 19, it makes it a lot harder if if they have a plane that they bought through the business and there's fuel in there, and they're like, well, this guy lost $500,000, but in reality, he made $500,000. That exact conversation helps them structure their chart of accounts and their accounting the right way to collect that data. It makes it a hell of a lot easier.
And one really important thing, don't talk shit about competing brands or competing friend dev people. I compete with Peter. I'll give him shit all the time. Okay? But no, your candidates are going to pick up on that. And there is talking about differentiators. That's acceptable. But don't badmouth because your candidates are going to pick up on that. And so what we do is we present an opportunity and we give them enough information to make an educated decision. We do not force people to buy franchises, okay? And they will pay. If you approach the sales strategy and process like I'm just your guide on this journey, eventually I'm going to give you all the information and due diligence so you can make an educated decision. I don't care if you don't choose me. Because they're going to say, hey, what? Alex was really nice. We had a pleasant experience with that. But my friend is interested, and this might be a better fit for you. So always be thinking about how this person can become a brand ambassador, even if they do not move forward with you.
Yep.
Or those of you in FranDev that may move to another company that you once badmouthed or whatever. Like this is a very small community in here, as you will learn. Be careful what you say because your candidates are going to pick up on that stuff.
Yeah.
I was going to say real quick, one thing that I've done over the years is that I'm very competitive. I hate to lose deals, but when you know you've lost one, and I used to do this with Mark all the time at CertaPro, like if I lost one to him, which I did all the time, unfortunately, like I would call them and say, congratulations. You made a great decision. They're a great company. I'm really excited for you. You know, if you ever find someone else that's a good fit for our brand, you know, I'd love to have you refer them. Yeah. But validating their decision is a big deal as opposed to like getting in at the last second and trying to like wrestle it away. Like they've already made their decision. So support them, and because then what would happen is Mark would do the same thing for me and validate their decision for my brand, and it's a big deal for people.
Yeah, and one of the things you'll figure out pretty quickly is, we've been 30 plus years, 30, 40 years, Ralph, like 40 years, we've been in the business for a long time and we really like it here. And we play really nice in the sandbox together. We compete like fiercely, but we also, this is our life's work, and so we want to do it the right way. And in the end, I lose all the time, and but I win enough that it works out for everybody, So it's really about and we learn from each other. Like I hang out with these guys at every conference. Why? Because I learn great things from them. They're good guys, and the reason people buy from them is because they're people you can trust, you like, and you respect, right?
Yeah, and again, when you're dealing with brokers too, this is another good thing to do.
Yeah.
If they're turning you down or say, what else are you looking at? Because typically a broker is going to present them with 4 deals or whatever. What else are you looking at? And so you're understanding like what other things have piqued their interest. And again, don't shit on the other brands, but say offer some insight. Like, oh yeah, I know that's you'll be happy. They're a good team over there. Like do that kind of stuff to help them on that journey. Again, you're there. I turn myself more into a coach. I've been around a long time, and I know a lot of these brands. Like, oh man, they're great. Yeah, I can see that for you. They're like, you get off of that pushy sales, to really coaching them and helping them on the decision. Because again, whatever they choose, they have friends or family or somebody that may come back to you, and they're going to appreciate you handling it with that way than getting all shitty when you lose the deal.
Perfect. Any other questions?
You got one over here.
Hi, Lynn with Adventure Display Care. So we do the text back to the leads, we do the email with the brochure attached, we do the first call. And then, we kind of drop it there. So I'm interested if they don't respond to those 3 things, with the Calendly and how aggressively do you follow up?
Not much. I mean, we'll try 2 or 3 calls, email, and it's gone. Move on. Remember,
Yeah.
know your stats too. Know your cost per lead, closing ratio, cost per deal, contact rate. Know all those important KPIs. But at the end of the day, you're not going to talk to most of your leads. It's crazy. Like they fill out this app and all this information, and they like never
Make it pretty clear the last time you reach out to them that this is the last time I'm reaching out to you. The ball's in your court. because they may not know that, and then they just forget about you. And things do come up. Things happen. The one thing you can also do in the background is there can be drip campaigns. We use FranConnect a lot at BrandONE, and we find it to be very effective. I've had folks that, I'd forgotten about because I tried them 3 times and texted them and called them and emailed them like a lunatic, and then they never responded. And then they're like, "Wow, I've noticed you've signed a bunch of people. Things really are moving with that whatever brand." And then you go, "Yeah, I'm glad to hear back from you. Are you ready to talk now?" Right? Because it may be that something happened. Maybe they lost somebody. Maybe something was happening with their kids. And it may be the right opportunity, just the wrong time. So, use some technology to keep them warm, if you will, but don't waste any more time with them.
Yep, make sure your text message is from a person. Like this is Zach from Mighty Dog Roofing. If you're calling, always call the last 10 minutes of every hour. We found that to be the most effective because people are typically starting each hour with a call.
That's a good step.
And then keep them in, obviously keep trying to re-engage them if possible. We do 3 attempts, and we typically we always text first, call, and then email. And on the 3rd attempt, say this is the last time we're attempting to call you, just like they said.
And let them know in that first call, this is our process, right? We waste a lot of time with tire kickers, right? And or those that are analysis by paralysis, right? They're just going to continue to sit there in your pipeline and I want one more call, and then they disappear for a couple weeks. Like, you got to be disciplined to say, okay, at some point, I need a decision, respectfully. Like, yes, no, or I need more time. I hate the latter, but you're on their journey. They're not on your timeline. But if they're just sitting there spinning their wheels, like, you need to get them to a decision, or what is, after every call, here's the next step. I'm going to send you the next steps. Here's the next step. Are we clear with the next step? And last, always book the call before you end that call. Next call.
Yeah, that's right.
That's a
Always
key.
leapfrog. That's very important. Because you'll fall off their radar and they'll fall off yours. How many of you are service brand type businesses? So you may say, well, I can't afford to work with the consultants. I can't afford to work with, Red at IFPG. I can't afford to work with Janet and Fran. I can't afford to work with Franchoice. You're looking at it the wrong way, trust me. Because I was from a service business, and it was painting. And, you're trying to convince, like, this executive level person, which is what we were trying to do, convince this executive level person to join a painting franchise. I mean, they're not going to go online and go, oh, yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to drive a smelly van around. That's not going to happen, right? So they'll pass right by it. But what the consultants do is they actually slow that person down long enough. They build this relationship with them, and they go, hey, I've looked at your background. I've heard about your family. I know where you live. I know what your investment level is. I know what your skills are. I know what you're interested in. I know what you're looking for from a lifestyle standpoint. I know this sounds crazy, but painting may be a much better fit than you thought it was. You should give it a close look. And that's enough of a conversation to get the ball rolling so that they bring them over to us, and we'll get them closed, right? So we've relied heavily on the consultants for a lot of brands that you wouldn't think could afford it. This is a sub 100 or 200 investment. I can't afford consultants. You're wrong. You're absolutely wrong. So, and then, you can pay me the $20 later, Red. But no, I mean, I really believe that with all my heart. I've been able to drive a lot of brands through the consultant networks like crazy. BrandONE has been able to do that really effectively.
So I think the stats are an organic lead closes at about 1%. So you have to talk to about 100 candidates to get one franchisee. The brokers are typically around 10%. So you think about if you're trying to award a lot of units, you have to have a lot of infrastructure to handle that type of sales pipeline. Versus the brokers, you can have a little bit less of infrastructure as far as qualifying, et cetera. But service is a tough one. So in roofing, anybody that wakes up and says, I want to open a roofing company, we don't want. We had a tree, Josh and I did the tree business. Anybody that came to us and said, I want to own a tree business, we were like, we don't want you. But the consultants are, they're saying, hey, you should really look at this. They're convincing them to get you on the phone, and that's a huge advantage. To where if you go out in the portals and you're a tree business, or even you have an ugly service business, the people that you're going to attract on those portals, it's not going to work. You're not going to get the right type of candidates, and you're not going to get the traction. So consultants are a fantastic avenue. I proposed to my wife at a franchise conference for consultants. So if you want to get some leads, just propose to your wife at a franchise conference.
Well, and I talked to some people last night too that were like, I can't afford it because my franchise fee is like $5,000 or $15,000 or something low number. Like, raise it. Like, consider your IFF to be your development budget. And people sometimes, if it's like priced too low, I'm like, what's wrong with it, right?
Yeah,
and so own it. Like, so a couple people can't afford it. You don't want them anyways. Like, you don't want someone that's looking for a bargain. So like with budget blinds, our franchise fee is $90,000 for dirt. You get a territory and like a van wrap, and good luck. And but people are like jumping over each other to buy it because we're worth it and we own it. And so don't sell yourself short. Like, pump that number up, own it, and then engage the consultants if you haven't already, because we built all of our businesses on the back of consultant business for sure.
Yeah, and charge whatever you need to be profitable. That goes back to the franchise fee. And I'll give you another one. So we talk about, for owners in here, and CEOs, founders, we charge a separate real estate and construction development fee. My friends joke that we have a separate second franchise fee, but so my franchise fee is $49,500. I charge a real estate and development fee of $44,500, $94,000 to get into the brand. And so when you talk about valuation, when you talk about exit, we make millions of dollars a year on that real estate fee. And we provide a service, by the way. It's not bullshit. So we offer full service site selection and project management of full construction. So we've taken that in-house with our partners Cushman and Wakefield as well to help us with that. But when you're looking at these fees, again, 15,000 deals out there, how are you going to differentiate yourself from the noise? Because of COVID, I'm selling without an item 19 and a $94,000 fee with 100 units a year. So it's possible, but it goes back to the flywheel. Build the reoccurring sales engine, and everything else will take care of itself.
Hey, Alex, does that development fee, how does that impact with ASC 606? Is that a recognizable revenue immediately, or?
It was, and that's now we've spread it out. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, it's this goes back to all these fees that we can charge to make the franchisor successful. And at the end of the day, I'll leave you with this: like, the journey to 100 is difficult. Most of you won't make it. But going back to David's comment, raise capital. Okay, to get there, if that's what you want to do, you cannot live on franchise fees, especially if you're dealing with brokers, because there ain't much left, or BrandONE. So you gotta get to a point of living and breathing off that royalty, and until you get there, it's a tough journey. There's been a lot of talk about all the success, and Josh and these guys, they've built companies quick and been a tremendous success. Very rare breed, those cats. So the journey is tough, but as David said, it's worth it.
Yep, so we'll end it here quick, Brad. 16% of franchisors make it to 100 active territories. Good decisions come from experience. Experience comes from bad decisions. There's a lot of experience at Springboard. If you don't make the phone call, set the email up to at least try to learn, I mean, you're really selling yourself short. So Brad's never made any mistakes, though.
I've never heard any of it. Phenomenal panel. I want to thank you guys